Which store's employees seem the most unhappy? Forever 21. Insane amount of cheap inventory. Inevitable shoplifting from target demographic. Only a 10% discount for employees. Then, when the store closes, you're there for hours cleaning up a day's worth of teenagers putting flimsy clothes in the wrong place. I've never seen a cashier there who looks like they think it's worth it.
Yeah, I remember working at a retail store like that. The chaos was real. People would just toss stuff around, and you'd always be picking up after them. The staff was mostly pretty over it too, just trying to survive the shift. The perks weren't much, and the pay wasn't either. You just stood there wondering if it was even worth it in the end. Just a cycle that felt endless.
I was at Walmart during December once. Christmas music was on. I said, aren't you sick of this? The cashier stared at me with dead eyes and went, they've been playing the same 12 songs for months. Edit, this was a bad thing to do, and I feel bad. I am sorry to that Walmart employee and any others I may have hurt.
I get it. Sometimes retail can be draining, especially during the holidays. It's like those same songs loop endlessly. I once made a similar comment to a barista and realized later they deal with that pressure daily. Not cool. It's an eye-opener how our words can affect others even if we don't mean it. Reflecting on those moments helps keep things in check. We all have our struggles, right?
Payless shoe store. I've never been in one that didn't have shoes strewn about the ground haphazardly. Combine that with all the angry mothers and children. It has to be a sad existence, cleaning the shoes up only for them to be knocked down again. A modern Sisyphus tale for all of them.
I used to work at a shoe store, and it was similar. Customers would come in, but half the time, they just messed things up. You'd clean aisles, and a minute later, it looked like a tornado hit. I felt bad for the staff. It was a never-ending cycle. You'd think some people would have more respect, but I guess it's just how it goes in retail. Makes you appreciate a tidy home.
Certainly not Publix grocery stores. It's the closest to me, and I avoid often because they're just too damn happy, and I get asked if I need help like 20 times if I go in for a couple of items. It's the step-forward wife of grocery stores. Publix is pretty damn good though, seriously. Just can't go when I'm in an anti-social mood.
I get that. There are days when a simple grocery run feels like an uphill battle. Sometimes you just want to grab your stuff and not chat with anyone. Publix does have that vibe of being overly friendly. But when you're in the right mood, it's solid for picking up groceries. Just finding the balance is key.
I worked as a locker room attendant at a Lifetime Fitness, one of the diamond clubs. The combination of literally cleaning poop out of showers because of all the people who are protein out of their minds when they work out there and being treated like a complete zero by the same people who just pooped in the shower and having to clean sinks 5 times per minute because some dude decided to literally shave his back hair by himself while sitting naked on the counter the second after I finished cleaning it is probably a big part of why I hated that job.
Sounds like a rough gig. Cleaning up after people who don't respect the space can be frustrating. That kind of attitude makes the job even tougher. It's wild to think someone would shave their back hair in a public place like that. I guess some people just don't care. It's good you got through it, but I can see why you didn't like it. Some jobs just really show the worst of people.
Michael's. It's a combination of specialty art store and a big box department store. I'm looking at 5 different brands of acrylic paints and ask what the difference is, something you'd go to a specialty art store to find out. But of course the employee doesn't know because it's a fucking big box store with 10,000 products. I can't imagine how much it sucks to be so useless day in and day out.
I went to a big store once, trying to get help on paints too. The staff had no clue about art supplies. I remember standing there, feeling frustrated while they fumbled around. It's tough when you ask for expertise and get nothing. It makes you appreciate the small shops where people actually know their stuff. Sometimes I just have to shake my head and move on.
The worst ever were Radio Shack employees. I walked in one a few years ago, and the guy working there was asleep. I put my batteries down, and it woke him. He must have been asleep for a while, because he was completely disoriented. He told me he had been there since opening and would be closing. Everyone had quit, even the manager. And I was the only customer they had all day. He looked like his soul was drained. I was about to hand him the money, and he said, "Fuck this shit, keep the batteries," and told me to leave, they were closing.
That's a rough situation for that guy. Can't imagine working in a place like that with no support. Just shows how things can go downhill for businesses, especially if no one cares anymore. I guess he was just done with it all. Must be tough to stay motivated when you're the only one left holding the fort. It's kind of wild how a simple trip to buy batteries turned into a whole moment.
I actually miss this. I live in Japan, and the staff to every shop, any kind, are always enthusiastic, smiling, and helpful. Of course, I'm sure that deep down they're crying for a way out, but they're damn good at hiding it. That said, there is one small independent office supply shop where the owner absolutely despises me and is very clear about it. Probably because I'm not Japanese or something. Every time he sees me, he gets an automatic frown. He'll follow me around his shop. When I pay for my shit, he looks like he wants to cry. The best was when I told him to cheer up as I was leaving the register, and he pounded his fist down on the counter. Weird old man.
That sounds like a strange dynamic. It's funny how some people can hide their feelings, even in a job where they're expected to be friendly. The contrast between the overall positive vibe in shops and that one guy must make for memorable encounters. It's interesting to think about what's going on behind the scenes with people, even if they appear happy on the outside. Sometimes, a little humor is all you can do.
You know why they're miserable? Think about that job. The reason they exist, at least in my area, is because there are ordinances against fixed, attached to ground, signage on easements. These do not apply to humans. So the human becomes the sign. To do this job, you need no skills, no knowledge, no personality, no humanity at all. You could be dead and do this job if they propped you up.
This really makes you think about how some jobs force people into a corner. It's like they're just there to fill a space without any real purpose. I have a friend who felt like that at a dead-end job, just clocking in and out. No growth, no satisfaction. Eventually, they found a way out, but it was a rough time. It's strange how work can take away your humanity like that.
My college's financial aid office was run by a person who not only visibly loathed everyone and everything, but also illegally smoked in her office, meaning that nobody in the IT department ever wanted to have to work on her computer. Don't smoke around computers. It really gums them up something nasty.
That sounds pretty rough. It's never fun dealing with someone who's not friendly, especially in a place like a financial aid office. I can't imagine what it's like trying to fix a computer that's been exposed to smoke. It's ironic how a small habit can create such a big mess. Just goes to show, some people aren't cut out for their roles. Sometimes you just have to work around it.
Big Lot story. Me, 24, single semi-broke, moving to new place, need furniture. Go to Big Lots. Find futon approximate $200. C-Sales associate cool dude says he has 2 partially complete boxes upstairs, will give me discount if I want. I agree, go upstairs with him, try to make complete set. Short a few bolts. He says futon maker will send bolts if I just call and tell him what I need. I agree. Futon $50. Call company, they send pieces. Success. Real cool dude.
That's a solid story. It's nice when people go out of their way to help. Finding a good deal like that feels great, and getting the missing parts for free made it even better. Makes the whole moving process a bit easier. Plus, having a futon is pretty handy when you're settling in somewhere new. Glad it all worked out for you.
They seemed pretty chipper to me until one of the girls went to tell me that I had picked up a tank top that was $5 instead of $3. I watched her mentally brace herself to deal with my reaction to this news, and I realized these cashiers must catch a nasty amount of abuse from their customers. I hate that she was terrified to tell me about a freaking $2 difference.
It's funny how something small can show a lot about people. I remember when my friend worked at a store. She had to deal with rude customers all the time. It really made me think. Like, why are people so mean about a little mistake? It shouldn't be that way. Just a simple price difference, but it stressed her out. Kind of makes you appreciate those in customer service a bit more.
Can confirm all of this. I was a stock manager there. The poor people on the floor had to spend at least 2 hours after the store closed to clean up everything that the customers threw around. None of them knew where the clothes went half the time. The turnover rate was so high, there was no one to train the new employees. Managers would just sit in the back and do nothing most of the time. The shipment that came in every day was always way too much, and we had nowhere to put it because the back was always full with backstock clothes that no one wanted to buy. We would send back clothes to the warehouse that didn't sell, and the same shit that didn't sell the year before they would send back in. After all that, it was actually a fucking blast working there. Lots of memories. I always think of that place as an emergency job if I ever need a second job or some extra money.
That sounds like a wild experience. I worked somewhere similar, and it was chaos most days. There was always too much stuff, and no one knew how to organize anything. But despite the craziness, we ended up forming a tight bond. Late shifts felt like a team effort. It was tough but fun, and I get why you'd consider going back if needed. Those places really leave a mark.
I worked at a Build-A-Bear for 5 years. The first 2.5, we had 2 CDs they would play on repeat. One was a 12-song Build-A-Bear Workshop mix. I still remember most of these songs, amazingly today. 2 months out of the year, they would play a Build-A-Bear Christmas CD. People would ask us, "Oh, you must hate this Christmas music." No, we were so grateful for a change from the same 12 songs that played 10 months out of the year. After about 3 years, they switched to a satellite radio system that many retail stores have now, which made it like 50 songs that would play at random. Most of them were kids' Bob versions of popular songs. Honestly, I don't know which was worse.
That sounds pretty repetitive. I can't imagine hearing the same 12 songs all year. Switching to satellite radio probably felt like a breath of fresh air, but I guess those kids' versions can drive you nuts too. It's funny how people think you'd hate the music, but I guess any change can be welcome. Still, I wouldn't want that job just for the soundtrack alone.
Subway is terrible. My old Subway manager would take her lunch in the middle of a rush. We worked in a really busy mall. She would put a timer on the phone and literally hold it up to our faces when she was in line, and we were simultaneously making sandwiches for other customers. Sorry, I couldn't make you and like 30 other people's sandwiches in under 3 minutes.
Sounds like a pretty rough experience. Having a manager like that in a busy place would just add more stress. It's tough when you're juggling all those orders and someone is more focused on their break than the team. Those moments probably made the work environment pretty tense. Can't believe she actually timed you guys like that. Definitely not the best way to support your team during a rush.
I loved working at Subway. If you tune out the customers, it becomes an entirely tolerable experience. No greasy face at the end of your shift, and you can get away with so much free shit. When they had their loyalty cards, we would just fill them out and eat free Subway all the way across America on our summer road trip. One night, my manager emphatically stated, "It is my goal to eat every barbecue potato chip in the store tonight." I usually worked late nights, which meant maybe one customer every few hours. My last night, I took home an industrial-sized garbage bag full of turkey and chicken breast. TLDR, I stole a lot from Subway, it turns out.
That sounds pretty chill. Working late with hardly any customers must have been low-key. The whole free food deal is a nice perk. Sneaking out with a garbage bag of meat is definitely a bold move. I guess you made the most of it, turning your job into a summer road trip buffet. Subway must have been a fun chapter, even if it involved some sneaky snacking along the way.
Cool, something I can contribute to. I worked at Cold Stone for a while, and honestly, the singing was maybe my favorite part of the job. It was really funny when people would tip us as long as we didn't sing. But after a while, my hands started to rest like I was holding the spades. I felt like I was developing carpal tunnel because of how long we were working with stiff ice cream. About a month into working there, 2 of the shift leaders left, and my manager asked if I wanted to take one of the open positions for a 50-cent raise from $9, and almost laughed. We were constantly dealing with rude people, cleaning dried ice cream off the windows and floor, and had no chance of a reasonable promotion. Boy, did I hate it.
I get that. I once worked at a place where every day felt the same. The routine was exhausting. I dealt with tough customers and messy situations too. It was all about the job and not about enjoying it. Sometimes you'd look forward to breaks just to catch your breath. When a promotion came up, it felt pointless for just a small raise. It's a tough scene in those jobs.
Oh God, Payless was my first job ever, and it was awful. A lot of the times I had to run the store completely alone, and they'd send in district managers to come train you on sales and other bullshit, when really they just stand awkwardly and watch everything you do and make it so uncomfortable. On top of that, the shoes were incredibly cheap and low quality. The customers were always treating employees terrible. People try returning shoes they'd clearly worn for a year all the time, and I can't say no, and kids and parents alike just destroy the place. And I'm expected to greet and do a sales pitch to everyone who walks through the door? Fuck that place and everyone who runs it. Completely terrible company. Only thing good that came out of working there is that someone sued them, and I got $400 out of it.
Sounds like a rough first job. Managing a store alone with those kinds of customers can't be easy. Dealing with returns on worn shoes and watching the place get messed up must have been frustrating. Getting $400 from a lawsuit is a wild twist, though. At least you got something out of it. It's good to have those experiences, even if they're not the best. Helps shape you for the future.
Actually, I have a friend who worked at an airport McDonald's, and he preferred that to a real McDonald's because no cleaning bathrooms, don't have to worry about cleaning the lobby because there isn't one. Customers are mostly people flying for business and not your average McDonald's employee. Let's face it, McDonald's is the Walmart of fast food. Customers have interesting stories, no cleaning bathrooms, although on the downside. Prices were double a normal McDonald's.
Sounds like your friend found a nice niche at that airport McDonald's. It's funny how a different setting can change the vibe of the job. People in transit do seem to have some interesting stories. Plus, not dealing with dirty bathrooms is a huge win in fast food. The downside of higher prices is just part of the airport experience, I guess. Makes sense he enjoyed it more.
I had an awesome experience at a Sleepy's when I was shopping for a mattress with my boyfriend. It was an older woman in a completely deserted store that helped us shop around for a good fit. When we picked out our favorite, she mentioned that her man friend had the same one because he has back issues. After we went through the whole payment process, she looked my boyfriend dead in the eye and said, "Since the mattress is less springy than what you're used to, you're gonna have to put in more work when you're having fun. Do you understand? October 10th would recommend 60-plus-year-old women selling you a mattress."
That sounds like quite the experience. An older woman giving a straightforward tip about a mattress is unexpected. It's cool she connected with you both and had a personal story to share. makes the mattress shopping a bit more memorable. I guess her comment makes you think about how comfort plays a role in more ways than one. Definitely a unique way to shop for something so important. A solid recommendation for sure.
Don't forget the fact that depending on where the store is, the people who go by there every day might also resent you, because instead of opening up something like a Jimmy John's or other restaurant, it's just another bloody mattress store. That's what happened in my town, and people were pissed that some prime real estate was now a mattress store instead of something that everybody else would love to have.
I get that. It's frustrating when a spot that could have been a cool cafe or something gets turned into a mattress store. People get invested in their local options, and it feels like a missed opportunity for something better. It's kind of wild how something like that can stir up a lot of opinions in a community. You just want places that everyone can enjoy, not just another store that feels too generic.
I was checking out the other day, and the guy behind the counter looked terrible. The person in front of me was being real rude and saying things like, "Don't you know what a food stamp is? Do you really work here?" And the kid, after about 5 insults, just went off on the lady. "Back the fuck off, lady. I do stock in the back. This isn't my job. Back the fuck off." About a minute later, it was my turn to feel the wrath of the Walmart kid, and I asked him, to start conversation, "How are you?" He simply replied, "Ready to get home and play Borderlands." All the man wanted to do is play video games.
I get that. Sometimes people just have a really rough day. This kid was just trying to do his job while dealing with a rude customer. It's tough when people unload their problems on you. But wanting to escape into a game like Borderlands makes sense. We all need a break from reality sometimes, especially when things get hectic. It's good to have something to look forward to after a long shift.
My old job was a merchandiser, and I had to work inside a number of Walmarts around the area. 100% can confirm that the vast majority of employees are absolutely miserable. The main reason: management treats them, regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, and their number of years worked there, like the scum of the earth.
I used to work in retail too. I remember walking into stores and seeing staff with that tired look on their faces. The atmosphere can be draining. It's tough when management doesn't recognize the hard work people put in. It makes it hard to stay motivated when you're treated like that. Just a reminder to be kind to those who serve us. They have a lot on their plate.
Wow, you worked at a shitty location. I used to work at a pretty good one. Management wouldn't always give a break when you wanted, but I always got a 30-minute plus a Coke break every 2 hours. The Coke break rule was set up for people who didn't smoke, but still wanted a 5-minute sit-down. Place was spotless, had to clean every 2 hours, we had a 15-minute hand-washing timer, and the management was just fantastic. Hired a lot of mentally disabled folks for good wages, turnover was low. Hell, our biscuit lady worked there for over 30 years. Sorry you worked at such a shitty store. I must have just lucked out. Example of the awesomeness of our management. Customer threw a burger at an employee. He ran inside, grabbed a piece of quarter meat, and threw it at the customer. Employee was mentally disabled. Employee was given a long on-the-clock break to calm down, and the customer was banned from the store.
That sounds like a decent workplace. I've had my share of bad ones too. It's good to hear your management actually cared about the staff and implemented breaks like that. Keeping the place clean every 2 hours is a strong move. The story about the burger incident shows they stood up for their employees. It's nice to see places where people can work comfortably and not feel stressed all the time.
So I moved to a new state, and that meant going to the DMV for a license. I'm from a small town, and a big line was 2 people. The staff there was friendly, so all the jokes about the DMV I never got. Well, now that I live in a city, I had to venture out to a DMV. The one closest to me is in a ghetto, so I already had a bad feeling about it. I walk in and asked how long of a wait it would be, and I was told 2 hours minimum. so I said fuck that and set off to find a different place. I looked up DMV locations and found one in a nice part of town. I went there, and all the employees smiled and seemed happy. The place was clean and super up-to-date. They even send you text to tell you your position in line, which I thought was cool. I was in and out in less than 15 minutes, and I was able to go grocery shopping while I was in line. I guess it depends on which state and which location they are in.
Moving to a new state can be a trip. I remember going to the DMV in a big city for the first time. The wait times were unreal. Like, I was used to being in and out in no time. But at that city DMV, I thought I wouldn't survive the line. Then I found a spot in a nicer area, and it was a breeze. Definitely a big difference depending on where you go.
Girl I dated years ago said she worked at Hooters for a day before never going back. She's a smart girl, and she knew what she was signing up for. Apparently knowing what you're signing up for and then actually being able to do it were two very different things. She said she literally just felt like a piece of meat and couldn't do it.
That's an interesting story. It's kind of funny how some jobs sound appealing until you actually experience them. I guess she realized that it wasn't for her, even if she understood what the job entailed. It's tough when the reality doesn't match expectations. People can have very different reactions to the same situation, and it sounds like she took a smart step back.
I work at Michael's currently, and this isn't actually the biggest problem, as most people we hire are artists and can help with certain departments. That's not the reason we're all sad. It happens to be the fact that at the particular Michael's I work at, we have much ruder clientele and are expected to compete with the nearest Michael's location that happens to have very nice customers. I'd say it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we work at Michael's. But when you're the kind of store that simultaneously attracts stoner artists, racist/religious middle-aged scrapbooking moms, old people, and elementary school kids who procrastinate way too long on their school projects, you're bound to run into a couple of day ruiners every single day.
Sounds like a tough mix. Dealing with rude customers can really bring the mood down. It's wild how a place like Michael's can have such diverse crowds. You'd think art would bring out the best in people, but I guess not always. Those daily interactions must keep things interesting, though. Just gotta find a way to cope and focus on the positive ones, I guess.
Michael's is the worst store chain ever. They try to sell everything. Art supplies? You got it. Craft supplies? Got that covered. Pre-made home decor? They've got more cheap swill than Pabst. They even have a toy section. They've stopped being an arts and crafts store and have turned into a suburban housewife diversion store. Blick's is the only store chain worth visiting if you want art supplies.
Yeah, I've been to Michael's a couple of times. It feels like they just threw a bunch of stuff together to sell anything and everything. You wander the aisles and see all this random decor that no one needs. Then you hit Blick's, and it's like a breath of fresh air. Everything's organized, and you can actually find quality art supplies. It's a way better choice if you care about your craft.
I used to work at a Michael's in a particularly rich area a few years ago. It was my first job. I was yelled at by elderly people about paint or fake flowers almost every day, or wealthy people would try and buy out the whole store. One woman bought 40+ large and extremely fragile glass vases and got huffy with me when it took me a while to skin/wrap/bag them. That and their coupons were ridiculous to the point that customers expected 40% on everything every day. I had to remind them constantly that that's not how it worked.
That sounds like a tough first job. Dealing with demanding customers can be draining. I can only imagine the pressure of handling fragile items, especially when someone is in a rush. It's interesting how some people expect discounts all the time, like it's a given. Those experiences probably taught you a lot about patience and customer service, even if they were frustrating at the time. It's good you made it through.
Working at the dollar is a pretty good way to improve your vocabulary when learning a new language, because they sell so many small house items. I teach French to immigrants, French Canada, and a lot of my students work at a dollar store, despite having medicine or engineering diplomas, because their diplomas are not recognized yet and they don't speak French or English enough to be hired anywhere serious. It sucks for them, and it's a pretty shitty job, but I noticed that it's a way better job than working in a fast food chain because of all the new words they learn. So there's that.
It's interesting how working at a dollar store can help with language learning. I've seen friends in similar situations. They struggle with their qualifications not being recognized, but they find value in everyday tasks. It's not ideal, but picking up new words through interactions can be surprisingly beneficial. Better vocabulary can open doors later, even if the job isn't great. It's all about making the best of a tough situation.
Or it's the only job they can get. On the noble side, Walmart employs lots of disabled people and veterans, but mostly for the subsidies from the government. On the darker side, Walmart definitely sets a lower bar for hiring than many other retailers. Got a minor, misdemeanor, record? Probably can get in. If you're any good of a worker, you will probably move on from Walmart.
It's interesting how some jobs become a stepping stone for people. I know a friend who worked at Walmart for a while. He had a tough past but found a way to turn things around. It wasn't his dream job, but it helped him get back on his feet. Eventually, he got a better opportunity elsewhere. Sometimes you just need that first chance to change your situation.
One time I was desperate for a job, so I applied at Walmart. Got a call while in class, asking to call back for an interview. When I called them and said what it was about, they put me on hold to get someone. I was on hold for over 15 minutes. They finally picked up and asked how they could help. I told them again. On hold for another 10 minutes. It was ridiculous. Stuck with it though, because I needed a job. Anyways, eventually set up an interview. Went in, did that, went off to get a drug test later. They called me and told me everything's good they'd call back about when I'd start training. I never heard from them, so I called and asked. The manager I talked to didn't know and said to call again on this day. I did, and nobody there knew when I was supposed to start. I just didn't bother at that point. It's like they're actively trying to not hire people.
That sounds pretty frustrating. It's wild how some places make it so hard just to get a job. You think you're moving forward, and then you just get lost in the shuffle. I feel like a lot of people have stories like that, where it feels like you're trying hard but the system just plays games with you. In the end, sometimes you just have to let it go.
I found they seem to be 50-50, either completely clueless. What's a hammer? I don't know what aisle that would be in, or like savant level good. Well, you're looking for bare oil paint and Robin's egg blue? That'd be about 3/4 of the way down aisle 18 on the third shelf from the top, right next to the navy blue.
I get that. It's always interesting to see how some people just don't have a clue about basic stuff while others know everything about their products. I remember going to a hardware store once, and the guy at the counter was like a walking encyclopedia. I just wanted to fix a leaky tap, and he rattled off the exact tools I needed. Made the whole process so much easier.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love,